when somebody's looking for a story, somebody's looking for a reaction. A lot of A&M fans don't want it to happen because we still have a pretty bad taste in our mouth about what happened when they left in 2012. And it's kind of ironic now to think that Texas would want to join the SEC now.
Yeah, I would say, Tennessee, part of the reason you never thought Texas would go anywhere was because of they had their own network, which helped lead into the Aggies leaving the Big 12. They, Missouri as well. Nebraska didn't like them back in the day. Nobody liked them, and they lived in a world of their own, and it's just almost whenever it came up, people said there's no way Texas would ever get out. But that was some time ago, though. Texas has not succeeded, and you have to wonder if Texas didn't go to school on A&M. And as you know, Bill Conti's now the athletic director. He's a very progressive guy. Sark is the coach. He's got strong SEC ties, and Oklahoma has always wanted to get into the SEC. I've said that countless times on this program, and there was movement back 10 years ago, and there was whispering a couple of years ago, but they always had a problem that they couldn't bring Oklahoma State along. Because let's be honest, nobody wants Oklahoma State, and so you're stuck. So their drafting partner has always been the University of Texas, and as much as they may dislike each other, they're joined at the hip.
Yeah, I was going to comment on that. Do you remember when OU tried to also go left the Pac-12 and they didn't do it specifically because Texas didn't want them to do it?
Well, Texas, the reason Texas wanted to make that move as well for a specific reason, that they wanted to be associated with Stanford and Cal and UCLA, and they felt like they were at a higher level. So that thing almost happened. It came very close, and when it didn't, it gave A&M the entree. A&M stuck around. A&M almost left for the SEC in the previous year, and then they held firm, and then they decided to get out.
And it turned out very well. I hope that I know it's all about money. It's all about what's going to be the best team.
Let me say this. Thanks for going. We have to go to break. If you're the SEC commissioner and you find out OU and Texas are shopping for a league, you better talk to them. Whether you want them or not, because they are going somewhere. We'll be right back.
If you're thinking to yourself, what can help me take advantage of today's low mortgage rates and save money? Here's your answer, Rocket can. You could save hundreds of dollars every month by refinancing with Rocket Mortgage at today's near historic low rates. If your current rate is over 4.5%, with today's low rates, you could lower your payment by over $160 a month, saving thousands in interest every year. With a cash-out refinance from Rocket Mortgage, you can consolidate and pay off high-interest debt, tackle home improvements that could add value to your home, or even set aside cash for your child's future education. The technology built into Rocket Mortgage makes it easy for you to get personalized loan options that fit your needs. We've already helped over 1 million clients just like you reach their home financing goals this year alone. So remember this, what can give you the technology to refinance easily and potentially save money? Rocket can. Visit rocketmortgage.com or call us today.
Hey, you understand we'll only be gone a few weeks, right?
Look, man, we're on a reputation this year. 14 of the best programs in the country. We're going to Florida, Kentucky, LSU, Auburn. I like to be prepared.
Yeah, prepared for the apocalypse. Grief, what's in here? Mississippi State lineman? A turkey fry. Really?
Tailgate, son. Like you're going to turn down a fried turkey.
Fair point.
Last year, more homes canceled cable TV than ever before. Why? It's just too expensive. For half the price of cable, you can get Fubo TV and watch the live sports and TV you love. Try it free at FuboTV.com.
I thought they would play urgency, though.
And welcome in everyone to the Landry Football Podcast for this Wednesday, July 21st. And we're excited to be with you as always live here on twitch.tv/Chris Landry Football. For those of you that are catching us on Thursday morning, we really appreciate you, and you can do that by subscribing to the Landry Football Podcast channel on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can listen to this show. You can listen to Scout's Eye on Football on Wednesday morning, and you can listen to the SEC Football and Beyond as I do that live Monday and Thursdays. You can catch it on Tuesday and Friday mornings as we kind of break down the world of SEC football, and we go beyond. So appreciate you joining us. Again, you can follow us on Twitch by clicking the heart button and join us in the chat room. We've got a lot to talk about today. Big show. Kind of changed a little bit as the course of the day took place, but subscribe to the channel and check us out, and follow me on Twitter at Landry Football, in all that we do at LandryFootball.com. We got a number of things I want to get to today, but we've got want to talk a little bit about Bobby Bowden, some things that are kind of mentioned today around the world of college football and the NFL, but none bigger than the storyline that is potential interest. We've talked about it a bunch in having the Texas and Oklahoma showing interest potentially in going to the SEC. The first thing I think you need to know about this is not a coincidence that it's taken place in the middle of SEC Media Day. The story's been dropped. This is kind of what we call a dropped story. This is not, somebody working it and he breaking this or that. This is something that's leaked for a purpose. Why? I think it's pretty clear that it certainly looks good for the SEC in the middle of SEC Media Day to have two prominent programs with great brands that clearly have interest in the SEC. Well, it's not new. I think they've had interest. Oklahoma's had an interest for an awfully long time into getting into the SEC. Texas has been in a little bit of a different situation, and we'll get into that. Why did this play out? Where did the leak come from? We can speculate a little bit. It's all we can do is, it could come from I don't think it's coming from a school. It could certainly come from the league office, which they're going to deny the SEC as it's not coming from the Big 12 office, of course. They're going to be the last to know this. Could be that the SEC office. It's very likely, though, somewhat associated with the Disney brand, ESPN folks. No one has greater interest in maybe growing the SEC even further than ESPN/Disney. They've got the new contract, which not in place yet. But can you imagine as they get the new SEC contract, if they, in addition to having the great league that they have, also can throw in Texas, Oklahoma, not only have that game, the Red River rivalry game, but, you know, the brands of those two schools. Let me remind you that the Longhorn Network is owned by ESPN. So anytime for this to happen, you just don't sit there, have a meeting and say, we're gone. There's penalties, there's finances involved with breaking things up. Their contracts are made to be rewritten, broken, what have you. But there's a lot of things that need to take place, and I don't know that they're going to take place. I can tell you that I'm going to take you back years ago, and I've lost track exact year, but discussing this very topic, but it was so close, and I'm holding my thumb and forefinger an inch apart. Oh, so close to Texas and Oklahoma getting in, going to the Pac-12. Texas, the administration at that time, clearly kind of looked up their nose, hoity-toity, at the SEC academically, rather be in a league with the Cals and the Stanfords of the world, UCLA, which is a great academic reputation, and so on and so forth. New administration at Texas. Things do change. We know that the Pac-12 is not as strong as it was. It's under new leadership, but they got a long way to go. There's the administration at Texas understands the value. I think they've always understood the value of athletics, but the monetary value in how it could help and shape the university. In essence, I think athletics is a bigger priority at Texas with this administration than the one the last time expansions were being rumored. So does that mean, oh, they're gone? I don't know. I don't have any of that information, but certainly looking at it, knowing that Oklahoma would like to go, I think that they would go if they were offered, you know, the SEC, they would jump at it. But having the two go would be certainly very interesting. And from the SEC standpoint, it would have great value. You know, I think that the thing about where the conference is, it's strong, it's the best. But you're always looking how you grow, how you increase the brand, how you increase the footprint. You know, it's just something that if you look at the SEC, where would you go to add a school? Well, there are not many. Texas and Oklahoma would be two considerations in a very short list that you can fit on one hand. I don't know that this is going to happen, but it's not being denied, strategically not being denied. We're not going to comment on such a thing. Folks, there's more than smoke here. There's fire here. There's absolute interest in making the move, making it happen, how much interest on both sides, what needs to happen, all the minutiae of the contracts, which is going to make a lot of lawyers rich. I can't tell you for certain, but I do think that there's a lot to this that I don't know we're going to have now. But this doesn't get leaked right in the middle of SEC Media Day for no reason. It's as simple as that. When you look at, you know, why Texas would want to do it now, we just discussed maybe the administration's in a little difference. The finances, money is always a factor. You know, Texas has a lot of money. They have a lot of private money. It doesn't matter. Everybody's always seeking money, always seeking opportunity. They've got in Chris Del Conte, an athletic director. Knowing Chris, this is something that I think he would like to do. I know Steve Sarkisian would like to do this. Doesn't mean that, and I think they have the ear of the president, but again, I don't know. And the board and the issues that are at play there, I don't know. Oklahoma, again, I think would just be doing cartwheels because they, I think, wanted to be in the SEC for some time, and this is where they wanted to go back when the expansion was last time, and just the climate wasn't right to make that happen. But I think that's why they would. Why would they stay? I don't think there's a lot of, if you look at the long-range future for Texas, they still have a few years left on their Longhorn Network deal, but their growth is maybe limited by the financiers coming in with that network. It would certainly be a great windfall to be part of the SEC footprint. I think that we're seeing the success of A&M as a program. Don't think they haven't looked at that and said, boy, the SEC's been really good for A&M. We ought to look at that. I think that has caused some things to change as well. A&M certainly wouldn't be happy. You're not going to have anything that is good for Texas is going to be good for A&M and vice versa. In the end, they've got a vote. I don't think they have enough that I think probably the other schools would vote to go in that direction. Certainly the contracts would need to be absorbed. The Big 12, Fox Network, I don't know the exact monies of that and the legalities of that. I'm not a lawyer, but I think all those things can be worked out. Whether they will or not, whether there's legs to this enough to make it happen in a time frame that's reasonable, don't know. I really honestly don't know. But this is not just, oh man, this is somebody, this is being dropped for a reason. Nobody has this story. No reputable reporter is going to float this out there as, hey, I got this idea. With no legs to it, you're just embarrassing yourself. If there's no legs to it, then it's a quick denial and everybody says, there's nothing to that. We've already seen the denials, the non-denials. And they're not going to add the SEC. They would absolutely add both Texas and Oklahoma. They're not going to stick one. They're going to add by two. There's discussions about Oklahoma State. People have talked about that the Oklahoma State legislature requires that if Oklahoma were to leave, that Oklahoma State has to go with them. I'm told that's not true. I'm not up on my legal legislative info, but I have checked with the person that should know in the Oklahoma Athletic Department about this. Is that there's nothing to that, and he's not saying that we're trying to move. He's not going to be. He's high up in the athletic administration. He's not going to be. This gets made above his pay grade. And so, no, I didn't get any information about there is that. But here's what I know is that the only thing that came out in a stern statement was by Oklahoma State that we've heard about the rumors, we'd be sorely disappointed, and we expect loyalty, yada, 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 yada. Oklahoma, no comment. Texas, no comment. SEC, no comment. Nobody's no comment, no comment, no comment. You're going to have a lot of people with a lot of time in their hands it's going to dig this story up to where you're going to eventually see where this takes it. And I don't know where it's going to take it. So I think that's kind of where we are on it. And I don't know that there's a whole lot there. A couple of things I will get to. I want to address a little bit of Coach Bobby Bowden. And we'll get to your questions a little bit in the mailbag segment. Coach Bowden announced today that he is got a terminal illness. He's 91. Just a tremendous individual. I've known Coach Bowden for a long time. He's a man of great faith. He is, I think people are aware. It's ironic, isn't it, that a couple of weeks ago we heard Mark Rick talk about his battle, and he's much younger and dealing with an illness. And we certainly send our prayers to him as well and his family. Mark Rick was someone he is very, very religious and a big believer and very much spiritual in how he approaches and deals with players and people. The thing about Mark, when he tells his story, that when he was at Florida State as an assistant for Bobby, the coordinator, really before he became coordinator, there was a situation with a player passing in Florida State's roster, and through that, he found, through Coach Bowden Christ and his faith, he became what he believed, he claimed it spiritually found. And, so he wasn't always this guy that was very spiritual, Mark Rick that is. And he is now. And that's because of Bobby Bowden. He went into Coach Bowden's office and he said there was a long conversation about faith, Christ, and belief, and it changed his life. So the first thing I thought of today was the effect that Coach Bowden had on so many people. Mark Richt, because Mark has been on my mind since his illness. And, what he's meant to, Coach Bowden's meant to so many people that have coached for him, that have played for him. He's a remarkable individual. I remember when he was at West Virginia, the compassionate, loving way that he embraced that Marshall program across the state in Huntington after their tragic plane crash in '72, where they lost their entire team, and what he did and to try to help them get their program back and raise money and do things and lend not only moral support, financial support, and facilities, and trying to help, literally tried to help them recruit to get their program back. Just a fantastic individual. I remember him taking the Florida State job, and when I tell you Florida State was nothing, it was a program that was being talked about behind the scenes in Tallahassee about canceling the program, just dropping football. There was nothing there. I mean, yeah, there were some great players. Fred Biletnikoff was there, and they just had bad teams. A good friend of mine, Larry Jones, was the head coach at Florida State before Bobby. And I mean, literally, I don't know how to describe it. I don't want to. I mean, it was they were independent. I tell you who they remind me of at that time. They were like Southern Miss, independents. Like Southern Miss, they played an 11-game schedule and they played like 8 games on the road. Because they didn't have any fan base. They didn't have very good facilities. So they made some money by going play Nebraska and Michigan and LSU and anybody they just played. So this age of entitlement of, we'll play you, but you got to come to our place. And no. You're a program that's trying to build it. You go out there and build it. And he did that. He built it from nothing. And gradually, Doak Campbell got, bigger and better. the population boom in Florida. Look, I'm going to tell you, Florida and Miami both consider dropping football. The late 60s, early 70s. That was a real thing. Population boom, the right, we've talked about, building something and who can do it. This is an example where, you could do it and they did do it. Miami built something special, and Bobby Bowden, while Miami had Schnellenberger and he left, and then Jimmy Johnson, then he left, and then, they had different guys. The thing about made Florida State unique, it was Bobby Bowden the whole time, and what a tremendous job, what a tremendous legacy. He is Florida State football. I mean, he is Florida State, Bobby Bowden. You think Bobby Bowden, Florida State football, Bobby Bowden. I mean, you can look at Alabama and say Bear Bryant, Nick Saban. You could look at Oklahoma and you can say Barry Switzer, Bud Wilkers. I mean, you can go on and on and on. There's some programs that are identifiable with one. Florida State's a relatively young program. Yeah, I consider it young because programs that were great in the 30s, 40s, 50s, it's a lot older than Florida State. Had played football for a while, but they weren't good until Bobby got there. So, thoughts and prayers as he's asked for privacy and peace at 91. I think it's time that we celebrate the life of what he had and what he is. And we appreciate all the contributions he's made to the coaching profession. I coached against him, had some success, had some failures. I spoke and worked at a couple of his coaching clinics. Couldn't be more. Bible studies, just an unbelievable. Just, I just think that we look at people and we don't really treasure them. Here's an opportunity now at his age where we could maybe treasure what he has meant. I will kind of answer this. I saw a couple of things, and we'll get to maybe some of the questions. I'll get to some of the mailbag stuff. See, Blake is joining us. If you got a question or comment, join us here in the chat room. We've got some things that I think are pertinent before I go into a couple of more issues that I'd like to. Mike Leach, in Mike Leach Talk today, and Blake says, Mike Leach, touching on a few things, Mike Leach said the SEC was good at football long before Nick Saban. Yes, but let's not take that out of context, Blake. I'm sure you heard it. Someone asked him, is the reason why all the salaries and the success of the SEC due to Nick Saban? And Mike Leach said, I hadn't really thought about it. He's certainly been incredible. He's certainly meant a lot. But his point was the SEC was great before Nick Saban. Well, it was. It wasn't, I can tell you. It was very, very, everyone respects Nick Saban. I think the question was almost like Nick Saban's made the SEC. Well, that's not true. And the SEC has been great long before. Now, is it, again, depending on your age, or you're looking at the dominance where on a day we're talking about maybe Texas and Oklahoma wanting to go there, is the SEC better than it's ever been politically, financially? Yes, in today's time it probably has. But the SEC's been great for a long time. Maybe no more, maybe not as great. Maybe this is the ceiling point, but it was great before. I mean, it was great in the Coach Brian days. It was great in others. I mean, you're talking about guys. You've got guys that coached in this conference that were some of the greatest coaches of all time. And it just depends upon your age. Johnny Vaught, General Nealon. I mean, a lot of, I can go on and on, a lot of great coaches, before Nick Saban. But certainly we're looking at, I don't think though, and I don't know that Blake, you were trying to say this, but it made it seem like, or maybe some people may take it as he was taking a shot at Nick Saban. I did not take that at all. He did say Tennessee reached out to talk but glad he didn't work out. What he said was that it was part of a coup. And if you don't know the Tennessee situation, I've explained it before. The previous athletic director had basically gone out west to interview him and offer him the job, only to be called back by the president of the university and said, "You're not authorized to hire him." This was a lot of politics going on behind the scenes. A lot of folks, the Philip Fulmer faction, the president didn't want Mike Leach. So the athletic director was fired. It was a coup. He called it a coup, and it was, but I don't know if it's a coup if it's a coup down, because the athletic director was a coup by, I think, some of the people like Fulmer and who ended up getting the athletic director job after that, but the president didn't want him anyway. So interesting how that played out. Texas, Oklahoma, and what about NC State? Blake, are you talking about Oklahoma State? NC State's has not been nor would be a factor in the SEC. In my, so you're probably thinking Oklahoma State. I don't think Oklahoma State is what they would want to do. No, I don't think that's the case, and I don't know. That it is, as some people have speculated, that it's required that Oklahoma has to bring Oklahoma State with them. There's evidence to the contrary of that. But again, I'm not a legal mind, and I'm not chasing that. I've got enough with football stuff. I'm not chasing that. Is it legal or not? I did say that I made a call today from, I'll tell you who I talked with. I know their athletic director really well. He's not going to make the decision on whether they leave, but that's pretty high up. I've known Joe for years. I said, just ask me this. I don't want to, I don't know. I know you don't know and you can't comment anyway and all this kind of stuff, but is there a law in the state that says you can't go without Oklahoma State? He says no. I mean, now, is he right? Is he wrong? He could be wrong. I would think he would know. Leach mentioned that players getting $150,000, but only upon graduation. Blake, I've mentioned this a long time ago, something similar. I believed a long time ago that having money put aside for players in escrow, and the longer they stay, the more money they get. And I do believe that, lifetime education at the school, getting the money, it's a great start off. Yeah, I think it incentivizes players to stay in school. And so that's something that I brought up a long time ago, and I agree with it. I don't know. He said, I don't know about the amount of money. You'd have to look at the money and inflation and what have you. So the Oklahoma to the SEC, and the Valor Lakes to Texas to the SEC. No, they're not expanding by one. They're expanding by two. So I think that's it. Blake says, I thought Sankey commented. Oh, he commented. He just said nothing. He said, I'm not going to speculate on that. And when I comment, so he commented about not commenting. So would you identify State as Jackie Sherrill and Dan Mullen? No, not really. I mean, I think that those guys did, but they certainly would not be in that category. Yeah, I don't know about NC State. NC State. So Blake clarifies that NC State. I have heard in the past about if they brought people that maybe the North Carolina, market might be something the SEC would be interested in, because they got the South Carolina market and North Carolina is booming, and North Carolina is truly locked in with the ACC. In that of the two, NC State would be more somebody that can pluck away from the ACC, but only in that context. I don't think there's anything with NC State. Again, I think the SEC, if they were to do something, Texas, Oklahoma, Notre Dame's not realistic, but anybody would look at Notre Dame. But again, there's nothing there. I think certainly from a football standpoint, Clemson makes an attractive, and you can make the case Clemson, South Carolina is kind of like Texas, But here's the thing: Clemson's a big brand. There's no bigger brand. I mean, Texas is about as big a brand as you can get. You can laugh at their football program. You can laugh at how they do. That's fine. Their brand is huge. And Oklahoma's brand is huge. It's like SEC huge. And it doesn't mean that if they come into the league, that their chances, how would they match up in the league? I mean, time would tell. But I think we've seen with the right hire at Texas A&M, it's worked pretty well over there, and that's a pretty good program. And again, all about money. All about money, and that's what will drive this, or it will make it die in its boots. Mike Leach did say something that I do want to address, though. He talked about, I love him, but sometimes it's a stickler to me when things are said, and I'm not trying to play catch you or gotcha, but a lot of things go, I want to say unchecked by the media. That's not really fair, because I think that there's a willingness and a desire to verify what's true. But a lot of times it's just a lack of knowledge, a lack of understanding. So Mike Leach made a comment when he was talking about his air raid and all this and that and the other, and he talked about how it's infiltrated the NFL, and it's not true. There's nobody running the air raid. I don't think people, and again, people think, well, they throw the football and everybody just throws that in the air raid. That's not the air raid. Just because you throw it, that's not air raid. Chiefs don't run air raid. Now, are there principles of spread and throw you? Yes. It's not air raid. It's not what Mike Leach runs. Even Cliff Kingsbury in Arizona had to get away from the pure air raid because it was a disaster early on. So he's even doing things different. He runs about what I would say is about 4 to 5% air raid concepts. Now, are there derivatives of it? You heard me talk about it before. Schemes don't win. It's the ability to create a scheme that wins. And so if you have the ability to create a scheme and you have the ability to adjust and modify your scheme to fit the growing development, absolutely. That's what you're looking for. And so that's really key. But it bothers me because I've heard people talk about, that Mike Leach is all that. Mike is listen, I think he's very proud of the fact that, he's done. I mean, Hal Mumme was really, and Hal based this off of a lot of things that Mouse Davis did. Some of the run and shoot concepts led to the air raid concept with Hal Mumme, which Mike learned. Mike is I've said this before, Mike's not what you'd call, Mike is very misunderstood. A lot of people think of him as this genius and all this. Mike is very limited in his knowledge of anything outside of his scheme. Mike does not spend an inordinate amount of time if he doesn't study a lot of what other people do. I've had a lot of conversations with him. He's not all that engaged from a football technical standpoint, but he understands what he does and he teaches what he does very, very well. Mike didn't grow up. Mike never played football. And that's okay. I mean, those of us that did understand that it's kind of a different way. If you've played it, you go down a different path. But he's learned it, and I think the real key is Mike's very bright, and I think if Mike would be willing to advance a lot of what he does, I think he'd even be a better coach. I think Mike is thought of as this genius by the media as a football coach. I don't think there's a bigger gap between what the media thinks about a coach and what football people think about a coach than it is with Mike Leach. So anyway, that's the thought on that. It just bugs me a little bit when you hear things like, well, it's the NFL's run over with that. It's just not true. It's just a little bit more propaganda. I'm not going to spend a lot of time, but I will make a note of this. Deion Sanders made some news, and again, I don't want to spend much time because that's what he looks for is attention. And he walked out. Look, I'm going to say this as politely as I can. If Deion Sanders is not successful, if you, I want to phrase this the right way. If you're going to be successful as a coach, it's got to be team first. You may be the spotlight guy, but you got to care about your team. If Deion Sanders is not successful, it's going to be for one reason. It's because it's all about Deion. It's always been all about Deion. And, I said during the spring, people that work there said that in the office you have to call him Coach Prime. If you're working, when I was a young coach for Bill Orange Parker, one of the great defensive minds of all time, he invented the 3-4 defense. And he was an old persimmon, crusty, just rude. He insisted you called him Bill. I tend to want to call him Coach, age difference and whatnot. But in the NFL, you don't see anybody. They call each other by the first names. Now, be that as it may, in a media setting and whatnot, I get it, but that's a typical arrogance. Look at me, and that's an indication. It's just kind of like, it's putting himself first. He doesn't care about anything other than himself. And again, I thought that was another example of Deion being Deion. So we'll see how that plays out. Some other thoughts here. Somebody asked Mike Leach if he had the vaccine. He says, whether I would or wouldn't, I wouldn't tell you. Good for him. You don't need to know it. So it's interesting to see how things work. Hey, Tony joins us. Good friend Tony. Got an NFL question. I'm going to get to a couple of things. I've got a question that has been long. I haven't gotten to answer it for a while. I hope Nola Jack is joining us and listening to this because he's asked me for a while. It's just a lot of things going on, and I haven't addressed it, and I will. It's about he wants to know the best receivers. Best receiving cores in the NFC South. I'll get to that in a second. But Tony, how are you? Good to have you listening, my friend. He says, do you see the Browns adding defensive line help before the season since things fell apart with Sheldon? Tony, I think, yes, it's possible. But you say before the season, I would say almost definite. But it depends on a couple of things, Tony. Let's see how training camp goes. Certainly hope that they're healthy. But they're going to be a first round of cuts. And that's where I think you're going to see the additions. I don't think there's anybody I think there are a few people that are out there that interest them at the right price in a role, but I don't think they're as good as the guys that are going to come free after the first round of cuts. So to answer your questions, do you see the Browns adding D-line help before the season since things fell apart with Sheldon Richardson? I do. Can't say who, when, and exactly where, but I absolutely think they do. See Fantasy Football 101 joining us. Thank you as well for joining us there. Appreciate you. Want to answer a question. Nola Jack asked this, and it's bad of me to take so long to get to it, but what do? He asked me a while back, and I wanted to give some thoughts. Now, clearly I knew who was the best of the group, but he asked me in the NFC South, who had the best receiving core? Well, it's pretty easy that it's Tampa, but how to rank the others, I want to give a little thought. Tampa's clear with Evans and Godwin and Brown. They've got I think, as good a receiving core as there is in the NFL. Dallas is really good. Kansas City's great. Buffalo's really good. Tennessee's got a good group. I think Minnesota's good. I think Denver's got a good group. The Niners when healthy. The Rams. By the way, check out the latest on the Rams and their perhaps pursuit of a running back at LandryFootball.com in the notebooks. I think Miami's got a good group. Seattle's gotten better. The Giants have a lot of good receivers. The Bengals have good ones. I think Tony's Browns have a pretty good receiving court when they're all healthy. I think the Chargers group is good. But, okay, so I think Tampa's clearly the best in the NFC South. I think there's a significant drop. I don't think if I were to rank them, I'd go with Atlanta, even without Julio Jones. Ridley's outstanding. Gage was really good. Zacchaeus is good. I think, Blake and Sharp and Darby are solid. And I think you have to throw in, you say receiving core, you got to throw in Kyle Pitts in that group. So anyway, I think that's the issue there where I would go with him. I think then, look, you can make the case. I would probably, let's look at Carolina. You got Robbie Anderson, Curtis Samuel, DJ Moore. You probably give them a little bit of an edge with the Saints, but Michael Thomas is better than anybody there. Really good. I think there's a drop-off. I think Tre'Quan Smith has a lot of ability. Obviously they moved on from Sanders and Cook. Just a lot of unproven. So I'd probably put the Saints at the bottom of that group. Quite frankly. So that's how I would rank it in terms of the receiving group. So I hope you get that, Nola Jack. And how about that now? I think we got back. I think we've got some audio now there. So we're good. Hopefully. Let me know if you can hear us now. But again, just kind of repeat there. Hope you got that information on that. We're good to go. So a couple of things I want to get to. A couple of more. I think we had a couple more questions here in the chat room before the sound went good. So we're good to go there. Blake says something he wanted to mention. He has some information. In fairness to Deion Sanders, he's not the only coach having trouble with this particular reporter. Hey, glad you brought that out. I'm not familiar with the reporter. Again, Deion is something that is, I'll leave that as it is. But fair point there. And perhaps he was provoked, but perhaps he could have handled it a little bit differently. Did get this other question that I'll go to that I think is interesting, and it's about asking me what. Let's see if I can find it here in the email. And by the way, if you've got a question, you can send it via email. Go to contact Chris at LandryFootball.com or on Twitter at LandryFootball. What are the most intriguing quarterback battles in college football that most interest you? Okay, as we not too far away from the start, I think that there are a number of ones that are interesting, but I would probably put, Ohio State's got a roster that's really good. It's national playoff, national championship caliber. I like C.J. Stroud to win it, but Jack Miller's really good. Kyle McCord's really good. let's watch that one. I mean, that could determine whether they're, how much of a championship contender. I'm thinking here. I think Texas A&M. I think Haynes King is going to win it, but Zach Casalda is really good in his own right, and he's got more physical skills. Doesn't have as much experience. So that one is really intriguing to me. Out at LSU, I think they've got some good ones. I think that Miles Brennan's got a lot of experience. Can he stay healthy? I think Mac Johnson is probably he definitely has the most upside and probably going to win that job. We talked about Texas. I mean, is Casey Thompson going to win it? Remember the name Hudson Card. If you're not familiar with him, he's a kid as a freshman that I think is going to be really good. I think he's got a lot of talent. And that, you get that right, then Sark could have something that's really, really good. Michigan, where do they go? J.J. McCarthy, McNamara, Alan Bowman? Not sure there. Let's see. Okay, yeah, we just talked about Mike Leach. How about Mississippi State? Does Jack Abraham look really good? Did Michael flip on a quarterback like nobody since Steve Spurrier? Will Rogers? How about Sawyer Robertson? If you listen to my detailed scouting report on Mississippi State, I think he's maybe the quarterback of the future. But with Mike, you never know. So it's always fun. You're talking quarterbacks. Tennessee, I don't know how exciting it is, but let me rephrase. I think with their offense and what Josh wants to do, I mean, I like Hendon Hooker a little bit more. I don't think Joe Milton is accurate enough, but maybe Harrison Bailey. It's going to be interesting there. What other ones am I missing? I think Mackenzie Milton wins it at Florida State. But here's the thing about Florida State. Florida State is getting better, but they're not going to be good this year. That's a big rebuild. Mackenzie Milton can lead some stability this year. Not like that team's going to win 9 games or anything this year. So Mackenzie short term, how much better is he than Jordan Travis or Chuba Purdy? They've got to figure that out there in Tallahassee. Notre Dame, Cohen is the guy, but Drew Pine, Tyler Buckner, those are the 2 guys that I'm most intrigued by. I tell you, Oregon's interesting. Anthony Brown's moving over, obviously, from BC, but Butterfield, Ty Thompson, Robbie Ashford, those are some that I really is interesting. Blake asked, where can I listen to your scouting report? Blake, if you go into LandryFootball.com, you go to let's see, that would be about 5 days ago, SEC Football and Beyond, and you'll see titled, go to LandryFootball.com, hit podcast, and you'll see SEC Football and Beyond, and go down a couple of them. You're going to see scouting breakdown of Mississippi State and South Carolina, if that's the one you're looking for. And you will see my whole breakdown. Neil, join me as we do that. So, you can get that there. And, of course, you want to sign up. Let me tell you how you do it. This is the best way. I know I love you guys listening, but really do me a favor and search for, subscribe to the Landry Football Podcast channel on your Apple Podcast. It's really good to have. That means it'll automatically go to you. Look, it'll be waiting for you. If you didn't get a chance to listen to this show live on Twitch, then you can go ahead and get it. We want to make sure that, even I know some of you listen on YouTube, we're gravitating more towards the Twitch world, and so we're really trying to get folks to do 2 things. Go to twitch.tv/Chris Landry Football, and again, subscribe to the Landry Football Podcast channel on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, wherever you get your podcasts. So do that for me. That way you make sure that you have it. Blake also asked one more question. While you're talking college football, do you think Scott Frost will survive another mediocre season? They're very loyal to those guys at Nebraska. I don't know for certain. You're going to have a new athletic. Well, you got a new athletic director, Trev Alvarez. A mediocre season further puts them into mediocrity. What can they do? How can they get it better? Not sure. It's hard to say, can he survive another season? Maybe another season, but I think it's getting close to put up or shut up time. I think the recruiting's been pretty average. The play on the field hasn't been real impressive. It's hard because the guy that hired him is no longer there. So stay tuned on that. We're going to get the landscape of how things are going to play out. Hey, a couple of reminders again for you. Appreciate everybody joining us in the chat room and encourage everybody to watch us live on twitch.tv/Chris Landry Football and catch us there. And then search for, like, and subscribe to the Landry Football Podcast channel. That way you're going to get not only this show, but you're going to get the Scout's Eye show. You're going to get the SEC Football and Beyond show as well. So make sure you do that. All three. Check out LandryFootball.com. Folks, we've had it. All the previews are done. Go and check it out by school. You got all the conference previews in college done. Working on the NFL. Training camps are opening up. We're going to have that for you as well. So check it out over at LandryFootball.com. Take advantage of our scouting season offer today. A reminder that tomorrow, Thursday at 5 p.m., you're going to be able to catch. Here's what's going to happen Thursday at 5 p.m. I'm going to come on live for you due to scheduling issues with Neil being out. We actually did the breakdown of Tennessee and Auburn. That is you're gonna hear that Friday morning on the podcast. So the breakdown, you're not going to be able to hear that full breakdown unless, again, you sign up for Landry Football Podcast channel on Apple Podcasts. So make sure you get that. I'll come on tomorrow to kind of get you up to date on the latest, and I'll talk a little about Auburn and Tennessee. But the full Monty of the breakdown, you're going to want to catch that on Friday morning. And again, you'll get it right to your mobile device if you sign for Landry Football Podcast channel on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Sign up for Landry Football Podcast channel, part of the Southern Sports Today family and podcast park. So make sure you check that out. So I'll be with you live to kind of talk about the latest, anything that's going on, and take your questions and comments. We'll only do that we'll do it on Twitch TV. So if you want to catch that, check on twitch.tv/Chris Landry Football. And then you can get the podcast form with the complete breakdowns of Auburn and Tennessee on Friday morning. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate your patronage. We'll talk to you again tomorrow. So long, everybody. See you over at LandryFootball.com as well with all the latest. So long.